At the end of the last video, I mentioned that we were going to change some code inside of our products project. But before we do so, I want to explain some of the options we provided to our Webpack configuration really quickly. So specifically, the options we provided to the Module Federation plugin. We're going to first take a look at the options we provided to our container. So I'm inside of container, webpackconfig.js. All right, here we go. So the first option we provided was the name. The name is not being used whenever we are creating a host module. Remember, our container is a host. It is trying to use some code from some other projects. A name is only required when we are creating a remote. Remember, a remote is something that's trying to share code with the outside world. Even though this name property is not used because we are inside of a host, it is usually convention to add it in anyways. Next up, we have a remote section. The remotes controls how Webpack is going to try to decide whether or not to load up that remote entry.js file. Rather than taking a look at all the notes on here, let me just give you a very practical example of what this remote section is all about. Okay, so inside of our container project, I'm going to find the src bootstrap.js file. You'll notice that inside of here, we've got an import statement that begins with the word products. So when we build our project, and it's compiled or processed by Webpack, Webpack is going to see that we are trying to import a module that begins with the word products. If Webpack cannot find a products dependency inside of our node modules directory, then it's going to take a look at the Module Federation plugin, specifically the remote section. Inside this object, it's going to see if there are any keys inside of here that have the word products. And sure enough, there it is right there. So this word products matches up with this key products right here. This tells Webpack that to try to implement this import or to try to actually get access to this code, Webpack needs to load up the remote entry file that is listed right here. So if we ever wanted to change how we refer to our products project inside of our container, we would change the word products right here and this key right here. Let me show you an example of that. Maybe we want to change this to products app or something like that. Maybe that's how we want to import this thing. To do so, we would have to also go into our Webpack config, find the word products right there, and change it to products app. I can then save both these files and then go and restart my Webpack process really quickly. If I then go back over to my browser, I can refresh the page and everything still works as expected. So you only have to change this key right here if you want to change how you write out the import statement for this outside project. I'm going to very quickly change this back to products and products like so. Okay, so that is the purpose of the key of that object. And the value is a string. On the right-hand side of that @ sign is the URL, and as you'd guess, that is where we should go to try to get the remote entry file to figure out how to load in some modules from this outside project. The word on the left-hand side of the @ which says products, is related to some configuration that we put into our Webpack's config, our products Webpack config file. The word on the left-hand side, the @ right there, products, is a tricky little thing. I'm going to show you a little bit more around that in just a moment. So we're just going to forget the word products right there for just a moment. Okay, so that's it for our container Webpack config file. Now let's take a look at our Webpack config that we placed inside of products. So here's the diagram for it. I'm going to also open that up inside of my editor very quickly. Okay, so now here we've got a name of products. That products right there, that string, has to be identical to that product string right there. That's what needs to match up. So if that string is not identical to that string inside the remote config, nothing is going to work as expected. Let me show you this in practice very quickly. So I'm going to open up my products Webpack config. I'm going to find that name property, and I'll change it to, how about just like my products, like so. I'll then save this, and I'm going to restart my Webpack processes once again. I'm then going to go back over to my browser, and now I'm going to see this nasty error here. It says, sorry, but something went wrong. So again, the rule of thumb here is that name of products right there has to match up with wherever we are trying to make use of this module from. It has to be identical to that string right there. That's pretty much it. Now beyond that, we've also got a file name that controls the name of the remote entry.js file. There's just about never a very good reason to rename this file. I recommend that you just always place it as remote entry.js. And then finally, we've got exposes. So the exposes object right here controls which modules or which files inside of our products project that we are going to expose to the outside world. So if we had many different files inside of products, we could choose to export all of them, or maybe just one of them, or as many in between as you want. So in this case, we are saying that we are going to expose a module called products index. And if anyone tries to import something called products index, we want to give them the src index file. So let's take a look at that as well. Back inside of our bootstrap.js file, remember we had said products/products index. So Webpack is going to get that remote entry file. Inside there, it's going to try to find something called products index. Inside of our Webpack config for products, anytime someone asks for products index, we're going to instead give them source/index, which is the index file inside of our products project. Now, this line right here is probably going to be one of the most confusing things for you. You might be saying, wait, we're essentially renaming something. That's what's going on here. It's an alias. And you might be saying, wait, why would we ever do this? What's the point of it? Why don't we just expose everything inside of products and say, hey, that's it. You can just reach through and just take out any file you want, and it can have any arbitrary name. The reason that we have this kind of aliasing ability right here is because there might be some scenarios where the name of a file inside of our products project might be kind of only meaningful in the context of products. Let me give you a really quick example of that. So quick diagram. Here we go. So let's imagine that rather than making some kind of products thing, maybe we're making some kind of charting library, a library that generates charts and shows them on the screen or something like that. Maybe inside of our chart project, we've got some different files organized like so. Maybe we've got a bar chart directory, and inside there is an index.js file. And that file has all the code required to create a bar chart. Maybe we've got another one for making a line chart, a radar chart, and so on. And so all these different files are named something like bar chart/index, line chart/index, and so on. This is a really small thing, but we might not want to write out inside of our container project something like import bar, or it would really be charts, bar chart index. Adding on the index on there at the very end is just not super necessary. We don't really gain anything by putting on the word index. And so maybe it would be just ever so slightly more convenient if we could just write out something like charts/bar chart and be given that bar chart/index.js file. So that's all this kind of aliasing thing is doing for us. It's just making it so it's slightly more convenient to choose exactly the names and paths for all these exported files. That's all. At the end of the day, once again, all this really means is that if someone asks for the products index file, give them the source index file. And so again, back inside of bootstrap.js, we asked for products index and we got back source index.js from products. Okay, so again, if that little aliasing part right there is confusing, I apologize for that, but it's just reality. It is what it is. Okay, so that's a deeper dive into all this configuration. I apologize for the last video being really long and this one being really long, but hopefully you've now got a better idea of what's going on with Module Federation. So let's take a pause right here and continue in just a moment.